By the light of the fire, he studied his tables. He was not required to continue studying after evening meals, but everyone, he included, thought it best if he did. Despite coming from a long line of successful merchants, he simply did not have a head for numbers. In the past, that would not have mattered. Books of tables could be kept behind the counter and discreetly consulted without anyone batting an eye. Split a bill for 7 pieces among 5 men? Not a problem. A quick peek in Part 1 of Book 1 would tell you that should 7 pieces be split among 10 men, you'd find 2/3 of the bill owed by each man, with 1/30 left for one to cough up or to be discounted from the price in the spirit of camaraderie. And John was bright enough to know how to split that answer right down the middle to make it appropriate for 5. Done. So John would have been fine in the past. In the present, there were all kinds of customers, which was good, but all kinds of new numbers and maths to learn, which was bad. It was pretty much a given that if your customer was human, the old books of tables would give you what you needed. Base 10 was as built into the human condition as bad breath and plague, except among the Islites, who had the bad breath but lacked both plague and any interest whatsoever in numbers, or buying anything, which made the whole point moot. But the family shop had as many Chidgalar customers these days as human, nearly as many as Belaine, and that meant base 3. 3, which means that now you're talking about 12 customers, even though Jiang would only count 5, and the 2/3 would be... well, that's where it all sort of breaks down. Whole number conversions from base 10 to base 3 are tricky. Fractions, John thought, were practically impossible. Then, let's say a group of Alinmok walked in one day. Lost ones with the armor and all. Okay, the odds of a lost one popping in were dim. 5 pretty much 0, but let's just say. John was supposed to be ready for anything, so... base 8. So the 5 become 5. Well, no problem. And the 2/3 goes to fuck all again. A little less fuck all, but fuck all nonetheless. Kevbray were base 13. Why? Do they have 13 fingers? 13 toes? 13 week groupings in their calendar? Nope. John figured they probably did it just to piss him off, or maybe their gods told them that 13 was to be the number of counting, and they shrugged and figured that was as sensible as anything else their gods might have to say. Might be hard to have gods who were insane. On the other hand, at least Kivprig gods were there for all to see. And John had to admit they were delicious. Simon Dons were as base 10 as any human, but they wouldn't abide by fractions of any sort. Now, everything had to be rounded. So, 5 Simon Dons walking in were 5 Simon Dons walking in. They order 7 pieces. Actually, they'd probably order something like 50 of the cheapest fasteners, but let's stick with the problem as is. And the bill needs splitting. Far as they're concerned, they'd each pay for 1, and the extra 2 got tossed in as lucky. No fractions? It's not like they didn't understand fractions. Sure as hell took advantage of the old lucky rounding trick every damn chance you could imagine. What's that round to? Oh, well, then we'll take 1 fewer. What does that round to? Like they didn't know. The family books of tables were so tarted up with notes and addenda and exceptions and advice, it took John an hour to get through 20 fraction expressions. He dreaded the algebra to come. He closed his eyes and took a few minutes to massage his feet. A great knot had been migrating its way around the sole of his left foot for a week now, something he frankly should have looked at, though he figured the masseuse would diagnose it as stress-related, which would be neither surprising nor helpful. After chasing away the knot for an hour or so, John turned back to the tables. He thought it might help him concentrate if he kept his hands busy, so he worked on oiling daggers. You couldn't be too careful about rust when it came to iron. If the rubbing and the polishing didn't help with his studies, at least his father would be glad the stock was in good shape. After all, that's what brought in the customers, base 10 or otherwise.